Hi, everybody. Hey, Zach, you can hear me just fine? Awesome. So, the microphone tonight is actually mic'd up to a stream and a recording that we're going to be having for this event. So, we're just going to do our best to project. If you can't hear either myself, my name is Lexi, or Holly, who's also going to be presenting today, feel free to just let us know so that we're speaking at a volume that's comfortable for you. Alrighty? Awesome. Well, welcome to the volunteer planting workshop for our Veterans Memorial Park Smart Rain Garden. We're really happy to have you here. Thank you for taking time on a Monday night to just come out, learn a little bit more about the project itself, what's going to be expected kind of moving forward, where we are in our status, and then kind of what to look forward to. So tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking about, the project itself, where we are in the status of construction. We're going to talk about all of the plants that are going in here at the Veterans Memorial Park, just down the street near the library, what a planting day is going to look like. So what we really, really want to focus on is getting as much community involvement as we can into the project, which means getting people's hands dirty, get those plants in the ground, and then what other volunteer opportunities are going to be coming forward or for the future for this project itself. So diving right into it, the whole kind of beginning reason that we are looking into this project in its location has to do with some of the historic flood issues that we've had here in the city of Cape Canaveral. So our presidential streets is just our highly residential neighborhood from Washington all the way down south through the city. And this picture that you can see, it was actually taken in summer of 2021. And this wasn't off of a hurricane event. This wasn't off of the storm of the century. This is just what we call another rainy Tuesday, rainy Thursday, rainy whatever day of the week it is. And obviously, this is a pretty decent threat to property, right? So it's getting pretty close to people's homes. It's getting pretty close to cars. It's flooding garages. And this was a pretty common occurrence at that summer. We had some pretty heavy rains pretty frequently. What happens here is that the city's existing stormwater system, which is all underground, gets inundated by these big rain events. We just get a lot of rain in a short amount of time. The system was not designed for this. And so it just inundates our streets and kind of almost like backflows. It has nowhere to go, nowhere to drain. And that is especially exacerbated by the Banana River lagoon level rising. So our outfalls for our stormwater system all lead to the lagoon, but when that lagoon level rises, it inundates back into that pipe, and that causes this kind of street flooding that we see happening when we get our heavy rains. So the Presidential Streets Master Plan came about as a guiding document for staff and city council to look at some of the options that we have to alleviate things like flooding in the area, to bring more bike ped amenities to the area, some more beautification to the neighborhood. And the Veterans Memorial Park falls right in the middle of that. What we really want to focus on with this master plan and how it ties into the rain garden at Veterans Memorial Park is we want to implement things called low impact development and green stormwater infrastructure. Kind of holistically, what this looks like is creating nature-based solutions to some of these rain issues that we have. So not just putting water into pipes and off of streets, but rather figuring out ways to soak it back into the ground and recreate the natural process called percolation, which just means water drains through soils. And we have some pretty good soils here just for that. So what can we do to kind of rejuvenate some of the spaces that we have to create this process at a little bit of a better rate? So really how this came about is back in 2022, staff found out that there was an opportunity through the National Science Foundation, which is a federal granting agency, for a phase 1 planning grant. What this encompassed was a $50,000 grant, all from this agency, to plan and conduct community engagement and outreach to figure out what was it that was causing concern in our communities. And overwhelmingly from that feedback, it was flooding. We asked questions like, what is your number one concern? What are some things you want to see in your neighborhood? What are you and your neighbors talk about? And the feedback just overwhelmingly said flooding. Now, we knew this from some of our surveys previously, from some of the concerns we had heard from citizens to our council members. So we just kind of were able to solidify it through a series of charrettes and workshops, just like tonight, to really kind of figure out what it was that people were looking for. Off of the Phase 1 grant, we were able to apply for a Phase 2 grant of $1 million with a number of partners, including UF IFAS Extension, Stetson University, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, East Central Florida Regional Planning Council, and a whole bunch of others. What that helps fund is essentially construction and the purchase of these plants, as well as a ton of the monitoring equipment that we're going to be putting into this garden. And as you can see, actually right here in front of me, these are all renderings of what it's going to look like. Has anyone walked by the garden within like the last, or by the library, I should say, within the last like 3 or 4 days? Yeah, so it's starting to kind of really look like this. You can see that the rain garden's being kind of carved out and dug out. You can see a lot of the plants around. They actually just finished the deck of one of the bridges today, so it's really kind of starting to look like how it looks in these pictures, but in real life. So it's currently under construction. It's not quite done yet, but we're really kind of excited about the progress it's had. Our contractor's been really willing to work with us and be flexible with some of the plantings that we're looking for, and says that basically every day someone comes up and asks him what's going on. So it's kind of cool to see it come to life right in front of our eyes. Just to kind of overview what Phase 1 really looked like, in the upper left corner is a word cloud of, basically when you think of the word stormwater, or when you think of your community, what are some of the things that come to mind? Water, streets, education, idea. And then when it comes to stormwater, things like pollution, runoff, flooding, overflow, flood. And these are all things that a rain garden can address. So not only are we taking more water off of the road than was previously done, we're also going to be treating it with a natural process. So as the water soaks back into the ground or gets soaked up by those plants, it picks up excess nutrients, excess pollutants, and that all is being captured, so it does not go into the Banana River Lagoon, which we all know is imperiled. It's not been doing so hot health-wise recently, so as much as we can pull off of our pipes and keep out of the lagoon, it kind of really benefits our local ecosystem. Additionally, what we did is we proposed low-impact development and green stormwater infrastructure concepts to the public. So things like rain gardens, planter boxes or urban planters, bioswales, permeable pavement, urban tree canopy, and land conservation. So how familiar are you with these concepts? What did you know about them? We were able to kind of discuss them in a little bit more detail in some of these planning workshops and figure out what people wanted to see in their neighborhood and what they felt would be successful and also appealing, not just something to serve a functional purpose, but also aesthetic to add to quality of life, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of a master plan of improvements for the entirety of the Veterans Memorial Park. In this upper portion, this is more of the memorial side. So that's one project that also is getting a ton of rejuvenation to it. We want to make sure that we have a respectful, reflective space for people to come and reflect on, the veterans for our country and their sacrifices. And then down here is really where we're going to be seeing those improvements. So it's kind of a two-part project, and it's happening at the same time. So tonight we're really going to be talking more about the technical, or the planting aspects rather, of the dry retention area, the rain garden on the south portion of the park. Thanks to Embry-Riddle, we're able to get some pretty high definition drone shots of the area. They're also doing something called LiDAR flights, which is just a type of laser data that we collect and are able to essentially figure out elevations, ground cover, other surface characteristics that help us make stormwater management decisions in the city. And just to kind of equivalate that to the previous slide, this is what we're looking at. And then this over here is really where kind of that rejuvenation reflection space for the Veterans Memorial portion of the park will be happening. These are just a little bit, crisper pictures of what we have up here. This is looking northwest from the southeast corner. Down the street on Taylor, so looking almost directly north. And then looking more northeast from the southwest corner. And then a little bit of a lower shot. So there's going to be a lot more plants in the area. We're going to hopefully attract some pollinators. Again, uptake more of those nutrients, that excess nitrogen and phosphorus. Those are the big two that we think about when we want to remove nutrients entering into the lagoon. And then functionally, this is it functions a lot like a bioswale. A bioswale and a rain garden, in most instances, are kind of interchangeable. And so what happens is essentially you plant a zone where there's some good soil for plants to grow their root system. The water filters through, the plants can uptake those nutrients, and then everything else goes through that sand or that soil and really mimics that natural process. Before I move on to the next slide and let Holly take over, are there any questions at this time about the project? Holly's going to talk a lot more about the plants and kind of what the space is going to look like and what planting will entail and things like that. Yes, so there's an irrigation system there to help it get established. It is the intent of staff and the city to basically help those plants get established, and that is kind of at a worst case scenario use. But the plants will be Florida natives, so they'll be pretty drought resistant. Holly's going to talk about right plant, right place, and what it means to put plants in the proper location. At For this portion of the project, there's no lights going in. I'd have to take a look at the specs for the other portion of the project, but I just don't have that in front of me right now. Any other questions? Alrighty, well then I'd love to invite Holly up to talk all about the plants.
Thanks, Lexi. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Holly Beals. I work for the University of Florida IFAS Extension Office, just over a couple bridges in Cocoa. And I'm helping to talk today about the planting aspect of this project. And hopefully all of you will be excited about all these plants and want to get involved in planting into the Veterans Memorial Park. So you do have a couple handouts, and those are going to just highlight all the different plants that are going to be going into the garden. There are already some that have been planted currently, and then sort of like a schematic of the landscape and what that looks like. So this is one of those handouts. So this is sort of like the general idea of where the contractors and the team has decided where the plants are going to be going and sort of the locations. And this is all based on, like Lexi said, sort of the right plant, right place. So if you've been to the park before, you know, it has some shade, has some sun. So there is a lot of tree cover there. And so a lot of the plants that we've chosen are ones that are fine with some shade, can kind of tolerate that sort of mix between that sun and shade. And so we just want to make sure when we're putting the plants in that they are going to be able to survive during that time. And I think a couple of you, or when you asked the question about irrigation, you know, plants take probably like 6 months or so to kind of get established. And so there'll be some obviously watering to make sure that their roots grow, and maybe a little bit of fertilizer depending on what the plants need. But because they are going to be all Florida natives, in general, there won't be quite as much maintenance as you would need, like if you put grass and stuff like there. So that's the hope for the project. And we had a live stream event earlier, and we were talking about potentially maybe volunteers helping a little bit with some of that maintenance if they want, but also helping in documenting pollinators that are going to come to these plants, because a lot of these plants are going to have really pretty flowers different times a year, and they already attract different pollinators like butterflies and bees. And so we're hoping to also kind of engage you guys in helping to document the pollinators that we see over time. So I actually took these pictures last Friday when I visited the garden. And so you can see that there's already some plants that are in there. In that sort of, I guess, lower sandy part, that's where the rocks are going to be going. You can see in the renderings. And so that's isn't in there yet. They have to put some lining and stuff like that there and put some rocks. But there's already some plants going in. So if you haven't been over there, I highly recommend going over and just checking out what's already been going in. But the contractors are going to be holding back some of the plants, so that way we can have volunteers going out and be a part of the project, like getting your hands dirty, like Lexi said, like having a hand and putting, the plants into this area. So I'm going to talk next about the different plants that we're going to be getting, and these are all listed on the 2 sheets that you have. So we'll start with some of the pretty flowery ones. So this is swamp milkweed. So again, a plant that is pretty tolerant of shade and really likes the kind of wet, moist soils. And it is definitely one that pollinators are attracted to. So it is a larval host to the monarch butterfly, the queen butterfly, and the soldier butterfly. So these are all butterflies that we hope to see with these plants. And the quantities here is just showing how many plants of that particular species we're actually going to be getting for the site. So in this case, we'll be getting 74 individual plants of this species to put into the site. But you can see it's a really pretty, smallish size plant, but, nice, pretty flowers. And so hoping to attract some of those pollinators. The next one is a swamp lily. So this one really does like moist soils. It's actually one that's naturally found in wetland areas. And it does bloom in the more warmer months of the year. It has these kind of spidery white flowers. And we'll be getting about 36 of these. They are native to banks, swamps, wetland areas around the home. This is a really perfect plant for water gardens and rain gardens and swales or even the shores of ponds. So this is certainly a great plant that we'll have for this retention area. This is canna, and this is probably one that people are pretty familiar with, right? Really like bright, showy flowers. Often you see these along retention ponds and other wet areas. And this is one that can be in full sun to light shade, so it can tolerate quite a lot of that sun part. But they have really colorful flowers. I don't know for sure what color flowers we have for the ones that we'll be getting, but we are going to be getting 42 of these, and so really flowery. This is, it's one of those that people are really drawn to, right? It really stands out. And this is a fairly large plant. It actually can grow up to 6 feet tall, but they're going to attract quite a lot of, pollinators. Yes. The contractor is getting them. I'm not sure of the distributor, but that's a good question. This is swamp sunflower. This is like the typical looking sunflower plant, but not like as tall as like the sunflowers you think of in like cornfields and stuff like that. Not as tall as that, but not as low as like the sunflowers that you see like at the beach. So a sort of taller plant. It's a really great plant for your landscape. A lot of people like to put it sort of around like edges. They're really low maintenance. They're really well adapted to our heat and humidity. They do like a lot of wet sites. So again, another one that's really perfect for our area. And one that really is great with just like very occasional fertilizer applications or light irrigation during the dry weather, right? So this is one that's really well adapted to dry times of the year and really doesn't need, that much maintenance, but really, really pretty plant. Oftentimes, have these kind of larger like clumps or plantings of it. And we'll be getting about 20 of these. So, and again, it attracts pollinators and everything like that. This is blue flag iris. This is one of my favorites because it has a really like purpley color flower, purple and white, and purple is my favorite color. So, but they prefer really wet, moist soils. You often see this in wetland areas as well. Again, another great pollinator, pollinated by bumblebees and longhorned bees, and we'll be getting about 50 of these, 51. This is soft rush. So this is another plant that's often planted in restoration or wetland mitigation sites. So it's really often seen at any place that you're going to go to like a wetland. I heard just the other day that the Vieira wetlands like reopened up for pedestrian traffic. So this would be one of those that you would definitely see like at a site like that. So it makes a really good plant for any types of borders of retention ponds. So you'll see this a lot along retention pond areas. And we'll be getting 41 of these. but really like kind of tall, grassy-ish looking plant. It is really, really pretty. It does have, because it is a rush, it does have fluorescence like grasses do, so it really has like these kind of smaller clumps flowers when it blooms. This one you probably see everywhere, silver saw palmetto. So, but a really great plant that is really tolerant of a variety of light conditions and very drought tolerant. So really great landscaping plant. A native, highly salt tolerant, so it's great for like the coastal areas. This is, if you've ever had saw palmetto honey, highly recommend. This is the plant where that honey comes from. Um, and so bees are really attracted to this plant, and that saw palmetto honey is a really tasty honey. So these also have these kind of small yellow berry flowers that are followed by small yellow berries that turn black, and they ripen during August through October. So it's a great wildlife bird plant because it really provides food, for most of the year with the flowers and the berries. This is slender goldenrod. This one also really great in kind of variety different sun, either sun or part shade. Also really likes moist soils. Another nectar plant for monarchs and other butterflies. So really another one that does attracts the pollinators and other native bees. This is a viburnum species. So this one in particular is called dwarf Walter's viburnum. So it's a smaller species of the viburnum species. Again, another really drought tolerant one. I think this one might be one that's already, a couple are already planted out there. I did see a white flower plant. I didn't get up close to it though, but this might be one that's already might be out there right now. But again, birds, wildlife, pollinators really attracted to it, including moths and butterflies. And it has this fruit in the winter or in the fall time that's really attracted to wildlife. And you can get different size levels of this species. So you can get some that are kind of more smaller and shrubbery, and there's some species that are like a more tree-like. So the Kunti palm, which is one of my favorite palms, because it's the host plant for the larvae for the Raritella butterfly. So it's a really pretty, like bluish color butterfly, but really great plant for coastal areas, really high drought tolerance, and it's cold hardy too. So this is one that you see. I think this might be in the planters that are outside here. Yeah. So really, really great plant. Really great to have in your yard if you can get this, because it really will attract butterflies, especially that Atala butterfly, which we are seeing more of, even here in Brevard. So highly recommend if you're thinking of getting a palm-like plant to get this one. Sand cordgrass. So this is a species of Spartina. Another one that's really going to be found more around like wetland areas and moist soils. So often found along ponds and like water features. So it's a really good sort of like border, type plant that you see. You see this in a lot of landscapes, but really great native to have in your yard. And so all of these, this is going to be the last plant I'll talk about, but all of these could be potentially ones that, if you have even some areas that are moist, within your yard, you could have, any really of these plants, within your yard. So that's why we gave you the kind of the two-sided sheet, so you could learn more about these species of plants and decide if it's something that you'd want in your yard. And then Fakahatchee grass. So this is another one that's really another Florida landscaping plant. Sometimes it's called the eastern gamma grass. And so it is a perennial, and you can prune it back a bit if you need to. But it is a larval food plant for a skipper butterfly. And again, another one that's really very common in landscaping. So those are all the plants that we have for this project. It's a lot, right? We have a lot of species, which is actually going to be really great because we'll have flowers and seeds or berries like in all different times of the year. So we'll be able to really attract not only people to the site because they'll see that, but also hopefully a lot of pollinators. So we're hoping on planting day, which we're not sure when that's going to happen yet. We are hoping it'll be on a Saturday. That's what Lexi and I are going for. Just not sure when exactly that's going to happen. Hopefully in the next month. But we're going to be following this landscaping plan, so that plan that I gave you. And the plants will be designated for certain areas within that landscaping plan. We'll more than likely have the plants sort of marked in some way and probably next to where they're going to be planted so we know exactly, where to plant them. And they'll be labeled in some way, shape, or form as well. For right now, I'm suggesting, if you are a gardener, you probably have gardening gloves, clothes that you might be wearing for gardening shoes, maybe knee pads or something like that. So those are all things I will ask for people to bring. We'll probably also, bring some gloves and stuff like that if you don't have, but really our goal is to take whatever plants are left that the contractor hasn't put in and place them within the garden. And hopefully you guys will be able to see, when you're doing that one, just the volunteering and being part of the project, but also kind of getting experience too if you're not necessarily a gardener yourself, like of putting these plants in and thinking about the types of things that it might need for survival. I should have prefaced my whole presentation by saying I'm not a plant person. So no, yeah, it needs to survive like wind, fire, snow, hail in order for it to survive in my yard. So, but I do love plants. My orange tree is actually blooming right now, and I go out every day to smell my orange tree because it's amazing. So I will also be learning, but I mean, with being with part of University of Florida Extension, I've learned actually a lot about planting and Florida natives and being just out and helping with different plantings and stuff like that. So I've learned a lot in my life, and I think it's a really great opportunity just to, get out and be part of something and something that's really wonderful for, the city and for all of you who live here. So I mentioned a lot about pollinators, and so one of the other goals of this project is to get volunteers to go out and actually document the pollinators that we'll hopefully see on these plants. So we're still developing what that monitoring plan will look like, but it could be either like a weekly or bi-weekly, just going out and documenting the species that are found. This could be also a time where if there needs to be any maintenance, we might ask for volunteers to do that, depending on what the city decides for that happening. But we are coming up with a monitoring plan that's actually based off of a plan that the Florida Department of Environmental Protection has for an office that they have in Titusville. And they actually have a butterfly garden there, and they have volunteers that come out and maintain the garden and monitor the pollinators that they see there. So we're gonna sort of take that plan and adapt it, for this location. And I think it'll be really great for the project overall, and just for the city to know, and for you all to know, what types of things now are found, within that park that maybe weren't found there before, as far as thinking of wildlife, especially our butterflies and our bees. So I don't know if this is, oh, go ahead. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and yeah, there will be some signage there that talks about the different plants. I think, I'm not sure if it was in this presentation or the one earlier, but there are going to be signs that are going to be going up that'll highlight the project itself and kind of tell a little bit more about it. But yeah, we hope to have, those little signs that you see often in areas that you go that talks about the plants. Maybe that's something we can even, get volunteers to help, create or something like that. So I teach master naturalist courses, and oftentimes we have students in that class who do projects for different organizations or cities, and creating those little signs and writing information down about different plants and stuff is often a really popular project. So that could be potentially something either for a class or maybe even volunteers within the city that might want to create those. So So construction obviously has already begun. So we started this project back in October with the NSF grant that the city got. And so that award was announced in October. And then very, very quickly after that, bidding happened and construction began basically right after the new year. So it's been going on for about a little bit less than 2 months now, maybe about 2 months. And so we're hoping within the next, this spring sometime, so in the next couple months, for the rain garden part of the project to be completed. And then it'll take a little bit more time for the Veterans Park part of the project to be completed over the summertime. And then we'll be monitoring and collecting data with the pollinators, but also water quality data on the project. So that will be going in. And then at the end of September, we'll be kind of submitting our final reporting requirements required through NSF, and hopefully doing some more outreach and talking about the project as a whole later on this year and everything that's sort of happened basically since October. And so this project has a lot of partners, all of them listed here. So not only myself and Stetson University and the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council and Embry-Riddle University, but Kimley Horn, helped to create the renderings that you see. Ferguson Waterworks has been helping providing information and materials for some of the other green infrastructure parts of the project. And then several others who have been all part of a lot of the community engagement and just talking about the importance of this project overall. So we've had a lot of great partners, a lot of people involved, and of course a lot of community members who have been involved and excited and telling us about what they need for the community and us providing, these benefits for the rain garden here in the city. And so I just want to thank really the members of the community, all of you, and really for all your participation and engagement, for your coming out tonight. And really we couldn't have identified this project without, the community voices and you guys telling us basically what types of things you wanted to see for this particular project. So I'll take any questions or So it would be the city. So the city is in charge of everything, like construction and everything like that. Stetson University and also Florida Institute of Technology is going to be doing some of the water quality collecting and actually analyzing that information. So they're sort of part of that part of the project. I'm involved with the volunteer type of part of the project. So getting volunteers part of, in the planting, getting volunteers out, working on the monitoring plan and getting volunteers for that. And then the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council has been involved for many, many years with vulnerability assessments and planning. And also they helped organize a lot of the workshops in the stage 1 part of the grant. So the 6 months where we had that planning grant of engagement. So those are probably the 4 main partners. And then Embry-Riddle also they have students who come out actually every week to fly drones over the park so we can look at basically what it's looking like, how it's changing every week because it's changing so quickly. Yeah, I would not say paid. They were partners, as part of the project. So they were basically providing in-kind services for either helping with the stage 1 planning part of the project or providing sort of consultation for the second part. Right. Well, yeah, it would be officially for this project. I'm assuming that was paid work. That's not something that maybe Lexi can answer that question.
So
Kimley Horn was paid for the design services of this park. And then additionally, so Kimley Horn is the design services of the park. Construction was bid out to a separate contractor. And so the city, the Capital Projects Department manages that construction as the construction management. And then Ferguson, in the construction of the park, part of what the contractor ordered in terms of supplies and materials came from Ferguson as, say, like a subcontractor or a supplier. So there is some, I should say, there is some payment happening in this. However, these are still project partners in the idea that they still attended a lot of our workshops in kind, and still provided, other services in kind as well. But I mean, Brevard County, City of Cocoa Beach, UF IFAS, um, East Central Florida Regional Planning Council, NEP, the National Estuary Program for IRL, Marine Resources Council, all of these have been project partners kind of from the beginning through the planning side of things. And then through the grant, through the $1 million National Science Foundation grant for phase 2 for construction, those funds are also being used to pay not only for construction of the park, but for some of those professional services that are rendered by some of these project partners. We wrote that in part with Stetson University. So there, our Dr. Jason Evans is the lead. It's PI, principal investigator on the project, as a title for it, and then the community PI is, I think, actually myself on the form. Where obviously we've all been working together on it. So the memory of filling out a form is kind of far back from actually doing the work for now. But it was a collaborative effort, definitely.
And we should probably say too, like this mayor and the city council, like approved, like, going out, getting the grants, like saying, yes, we want this project and everything like that. So that also is a big part of it as well. Like having their support obviously is really important for city staff to be able to do their job, for Lexi to be like, yep, I'm going to sign my name on this, so yeah. So they all have been on board, so.
You guys have any other questions? Yes. So it's designed to be dry most of the time. The only time that it would really be wet is if it were inundated. So if we had a big rain event, you might see some water sitting in it, and then you'd see it drain. You might see that drain a little bit slower if we have 2 back-to-back big rain events, just because we'd have a higher groundwater table and the ground would be a little bit more saturated. But it's designed to be dry most of the time. Yeah, yeah, and they didn't even have to dewater or anything. So when they were digging, they weren't running pumps or anything like that. It was just it's been dry since they dug it. Because it's dry, mosquito management won't be necessary, but that'll be something, if the city ever notices that anywhere, like if a swale or a rain garden isn't functioning as intended, we'll obviously keep an eye on that. Yeah, good questions.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, sorry, I feel like I have to keep coming to the mic for the video, but it wouldn't be wet long enough for like mosquito development. So, and even though a lot of the plants might have like swamp or water like in their names, like a lot of that has to do with them being able to take basically wet roots. So being able to take having moist soil like for long periods of time, which even if there isn't standing water, the soil might be still like very wet. So they have that ability to be able to withstand sort of extra moisture in the soil. So who's ready to sign up? Yay! Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, so I think what we would like to do, maybe, Mandy, if you could get in the sign-in sheet, if you are ready to sign on, maybe put your email address so that way we can add you to that. If you're still on the fence, there's still time to sign up. So there's a form on the City of Cape Canaveral's website where you can sign up for updates about the project, and then that will just still get you information. So if you're like, okay, I really want to do this, you can still be part of the project at any time. We'll take anyone at any time. Okay. No, 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 no. It's we're spring really, like hopefully like before we're really hoping like this month or next month for like the planting part. For the monitoring, it'll be like it'll help it also happen during the summertime. So we'll need people who are here during the summer for that part. But for the planting, it'll be sooner rather than later.
I can't speak specifically to the reflective portion. I call it the reflective portion of Veterans Memorial Park, or the memorial portion of it. But if you look in the renderings here, and I can't see, I'm sorry, there should be like a circular kind of space with some grass. There's a ledge there, so that'll be there for some quiet seating. Um, I can't off the top of my head recall if there's benches in the other portion of it. Um, there might be, but I know for sure that that kind of paver wall space there, that'll be there for some quiet seating as well. Yes, there used to be that kind of flatter area used to be a big chessboard, and now it's definitely going to be a little bit rejuvenated with just kind of a nice little reflective space. We maintained, I think we were able to maintain essentially all of the existing trees. I think there was one that had to be removed. But there's a really beautiful live oak out there that's still there, and there's some really great shade in that area. So we were really happy with our ability to maintain a lot of those trees. Yeah, so yeah. So maintenance is, no matter what, there's always maintenance to be considered. So the Rain Guardians, which are actually two of the structures that were in, there's three of them that were installed as part of Ferguson Waterworks. What they do is they help actually capture some of that. So they're meant to collect it, and then it has a trap to be cleaned out. There's always maintenance with any project, so we can never ignore it. Um, the benefit to it is that, yes, it might be a little bit more frequent maintenance. It'll be a little bit more accessible than what was there previously, where those structures are going. It was used to be what's just called like a traditional throat. It's just an opening of concrete, and so there was really no way to um, collect that debris and those leaves. And the way that we see it is, if we can clean it out, or if it gets caught in our garden, it's that many less leaves that go into the lagoon. And when those leaves break down, they're so small and they break down so easily that they're kind of an immediate source of total nitrogen and total phosphorus, and that can lead to algal blooms. So whatever we can do to kind of capture it, even if it means a little bit more maintenance, but it's easier maintenance than what it would have been before, which isn't always the case with projects. Sometimes it's not easier maintenance. It's still maintenance. You can never ignore it, but this is a little bit more accessible for our crew. Hmm. Any other questions? Yes. We love them. I know. I was like, I thought maybe you did. Yeah. So I'm going to step around it. So I'm sorry for anybody listening, just to kind of point out what our system looks like. So essentially, what'll happen is what's the best one to pull off of? So right here is part of that throat that I mentioned. There's also going to be one right here. It's actually under the sidewalk, so that's going to be pulling water off of the street. And then there's another one in the distance here off of the library parking lot. So this throat and this throat already existed. That water was already moving into the pond, or into the rain garden, I should say, prior to any improvement. We added this, and that's actually going to remove water that's currently going into our system, just straight into the pipe, into here. And we call that staging. So we're going to stage water here. We're going to try and pull more into this area before putting it into our underground system. And by design, what we're hoping will happen is it'll alleviate some of the flooding. However, where am I? This structure right here, this already exists. This has been here. We're not moving it. It's staying here. This is what we call an overflow structure. So as this area fills up, let's say we get a really bad rainstorm, or we have 2 or 3 in a row, not unheard of. Um, if this fills up, this is like your tub's overflow drain. Like if you're taking a bath and you sit down in your bath and it spills over and it makes that nice slurping sound. That's essentially what this is, and that reconnects to our underground system so that water goes somewhere. But what this is trying to do is essentially pull water that's already going into our system, or not as much, pull more of it so that it stages here. Hopefully, not to the point of overflow, but in the event that it does overflow, we have an overflow valve. So it's connected to the system, but not exactly.
So Orange Avenue and part of Taylor will drain into it?
Yeah, part of Taylor will drain into there. So without having the elevations in front of me in the system, I can't quite say exactly how much. Some of Orange's might come around the corner and pull into that. This one, this structure here that's going in, we call it foxhole, just because it's just like a little fin that goes underneath it. So some of that might come around the corner and pull in, but without having my drainage plan in front of me, I couldn't tell you off of memory. Any other questions? We love talking about stormwater, in case you couldn't tell. Well, I think if there aren't any other questions, you had a question? No, it's okay if you do. If not, you guys are welcome to hang out, and if you think of any questions, or if you want to come take a look at some of the signs up here. Obviously, the 4 closest to me are just printouts of our rendering. And then we have a really great, what affects the lagoon sign all the way over there. It's the biggest one on the bottom, as well as just some information about what low impact development is and other places that it's been implemented here in the city. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for attending. We really appreciate your time. And I think the sign-in sheet is somewhere too.
Yes, she was just putting her email. Yes. If you want to put your email on the sheet, great. Or if you just want to wait and to hear from us by signing up for the normal Cape Canaveral news, that's fine too. So you'll always welcome.
Yeah. Thank you guys.